I'll be up by this afternoon sometime. So you can get your popcorn and have a Mike marathon if you would like. Well, let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come and worship you today and to hopefully, Father, to increase our skills at ministering to other people. Father, there are many people we come in contact with in our orbit, and they are hurting, and they need us to be involved in their lives and take an interest in them, and find out how we can help them with the issues that they're facing. So I pray that this morning we can accomplish that, to learn some skills that will make us more effective ministers. And we ask you to bless this time in Christ's name. Amen. Well, this week will be a lot more interactive, so be ready to respond to the questions that I have for you. Well, I'm going to start this morning with a story. Early in our marriage, about this time of year, meaning it was time for the NCAA basketball games to be on. And I was watching a game, not just any game, but an Oklahoma State game. And Karen came in and she wanted to talk. And I nodded, but my eyes never left the screen. And she started, and a couple of minutes later she said, "You're not listening." And I repeated every word she said verbatim. And she gave up, frustrated. And I'm thinking, what's the problem? I'm multitasking here. So what was the problem? Tell me what the problem was.
Not looking at her.
You weren't even heard your attention. You heard her words, but not the more depth of what she
Okay.
said.
What's
She
watching
wanted
your
your full
face?
attention.
Full attention.
Okay.
She didn't know you were listening.
You should even feel listened
You
to.
didn't.
Yeah,
Yes.
feel listened to.
There you go.
Has there ever been a time when you tried to share a need with someone and you didn't feel understood? How did that affect your mood, your relationship with them, and your confidence in them to help solve the problem? Anybody?
Maybe stop talking.
Sure. Your turn to talk. Can you remember a time when you tried to talk to someone with a problem and didn't feel understood?
Don't feel important.
Yeah.
Don't feel
That
bad.
they didn't care.
Okay.
Might even get a little angry
All right.
that they're not listening.
Got better things to do, don't care, and all that kind of thing. So, when we do have a good counseling relationship with someone, or just a friend-to-friend relationship, what are some of the benefits that happens when someone feels understood in a counseling situation? What are the good things that can happen?
Change the direction.
Okay.
Healing.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You can kind of fill their love tank or their,
Yeah.
life-giving rather than,
Mm-hmm.
It frees them to care about other people's needs then also.
Validated.
Okay. So if they're feeling some shame or loneliness about their problem, that kind of melts away when you've got somebody that cares. Hopefully you can help them identify the problem and come up with some barriers and get the resources that it needs to overcome that. And you give them hope. I can get through this perhaps with somebody's help. And so those are some of the real benefits. Have you ever played that game? I think it's called the telephone game, where you whisper a message to somebody's ear and they whisper it to the next ear, and it goes around the circle and past 8 or 10 people, and the last person whispers the message back to you. And sometimes when it comes back, that message is vastly different. It shows you the complexities of communication, even between two people. Communication can be complex. And you think about some of the variables that fight against clarity and understanding. I mean, you've got what I said, what I thought I said, what they heard, and what they thought they heard. And even that can cause all kinds of issues. So we want to talk today about becoming a great listener. Good listening skills sort out complexities, and they eliminate some of the misunderstandings that occur when two people try to communicate with each other. And these skills are essential in every relationship, at home, at work, with friends, with neighbors. Some of us are more naturally gifted at being good listeners, but there are some skills that we can learn and practice. And so the skills that we want to talk about today are on your outline. They're initiating, attending, active listening, responding, and referring. And the first skill is initiating. Needs can come in many ways. The death of a child, death, natural disaster, a dead-end job, addictions, many others. But no matter what the situation, we can notice and take initiative and initiate to offer them assistance or respond to the person's request with a warm smile and a simple question. How can I help you? Some people are so independent they've never had to ask for any help from anybody. But other people are so traumatized that their hearts are numb and their minds are blank. And your question and the offer to help can open the doors to information and trust. And those are two vital ingredients in any kind of counseling relationship. So I want to look at two scriptural examples of initiating a conversation. So get your Bibles out. And John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. And when somebody gets there, raise their hand and read what you read. John chapter 5, verses 1 through 9. Who's there?
5, 1 through 9.
Okay.
After this, a Jewish festival took place, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. By the sheep gate in Jerusalem there is a pool called Bethesda in Arabic, which has 5 colonnades. Within these lay a large number of the disabled, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been disabled for 38 years. When Jesus saw him there and realized he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the disabled man answered, "I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. While I'm coming, someone goes down ahead of me." "Get up," Jesus told him, "pick up your mat and walk." Instantly the man got well, picked up his mat, and started to walk. Now that day was the Sabbath.
So how did Jesus initiate the conversation with the sick man?
Do you want to get well?
You want to get well. This is not complicated, okay? All right, let's look at another one. Acts chapter 8, verses... Well, first of all, how do you think that approach, what do you think that approach meant to the man?
Well, I think it was very touching to him. I think he
Yeah.
impacted him pretty deep because, he had been ignored for a long time.
38 years, that's incredible.
Something I've never noticed before he said that, Jesus learned about the man.
So he was attuned to the environment, aware of the situation, and then took notice of the man. Okay. All right, Acts chapter 8, 26 through 31.
Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Go south to the road, the desert road, that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza." So he started out, and on his way he met an Ethiopian, Enoch, an important official in charge of all the treasury of the Kandake, which means Queen of the Ethiopians. This man had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and on his way home was sitting in the chariot reading the book of Isaiah, the prophet. The Spirit told Philip, "Go to that chariot and stay near it." Then Philip ran up to the chariot and heard the man reading Isaiah and the prophet. Do you understand what you are reading? Philip asked. How can I, he said, unless someone explains it to me? So he invited Philip to come up and sit with him.
Okay. So how did Philip begin the conversation?
Do you understand?
Ask a question.
Yeah, his opening line, do you understand what you're reading? What factors could have been a hindrance to even beginning a conversation?
If the Spirit hadn't told Philip to go, he might not have even seen that guy
Yeah,
or been on his radar.
okay. So he's attuned to the Spirit, and this is about a 3-day walk from where he was to the road that descends from Jerusalem to Gaza. What else?
You're asking what could have hindered it?
Yeah, what could have been a hindrance to even starting a conversation?
I assume they spoke the same language.
Yeah.
Good point.
Probably not natively, though. This was a foreigner who had a different primary language, probably.
Yeah,
Different race,
okay,
different heritage.
okay,
Philip had to run to catch the chariot.
yeah,
I wouldn't
okay.
have.
So
Intentional.
Phil's been beating the road for 3 days, and he's kind of dusty, probably, kind of bedraggled looking. And who is this guy?
A dignitary and an
Yeah.
official.
Okay, somebody
He
important,
had to report him.
a high government official, evidently. He's in the chariot, Philip's on his feet. Anything else you can think of?
Sometimes when you don't know something, you're fearful, or you don't want to tell somebody you don't understand.
Yeah.
Kind of embarrassed, maybe.
I'm trying to think of somebody high in government that you might, encounter. Whoever was the Secretary of Commerce in the United States, you ran into them. Would you be interested in starting a conversation?
Might feel a little bit awkward there.
Yeah. So this guy is in charge of all kinds of resources of a whole country. Think of anything else? He's from Ethiopia. Does that give you a clue?
Probably a black man.
Pretty good chance he's a black guy. So you see all kinds of differences, and yet he was willing to take the initiative to ask a simple question. Do you understand what you're reading? In both of these situations, what did the person in need sense about Jesus and about Philip? What did they sense?
If they cared. They cared enough to make the effort to ask.
Yeah. Okay. In McKinney, Karen and I were both divorce care facilitators in our ministry there. And I was always amazed that that first session, somebody would open up, somebody who I had never met 45 minutes before, and we watch a video, and then they're telling me all the details of how their marriage broke up. And if you care about people, they're not checking their credentials. So take comfort in that, okay? It's your care that opens the door. So the second skill is attending. So what does attending mean? To be present, to devote your full focus and concentration on someone. And from their perspective, how do you appear to them? Attending involves several elements, and the first one is eye contact. What do people think when we're not making eye contact with them?
They're not listening.
Not listening,
Not
don't
interested.
care, got better things to do. If we're genuinely tracking with someone, we'll be able to gauge their mood and the connection between the words and their emotions. Secondly is posture. What should your posture look like that demonstrates interest in the other person?
You should be leaning forward.
Yeah. So tell me, what's your posture?
Not that. Not that.
leaning forward, demonstrates interest. What else?
Open body, like an open stance,
Okay. What does that tell them?
that I'm open to hearing you.
I'm accessible. I'm ready to receive your comments.
I'm not afraid of what you're gonna say.
Okay. If you're squared up with them, squared shoulders, it demonstrates full attention. So be aware of that. Another thing to consider is avoiding distractions. I
Like
think
kids
so.
playing outside?
Yeah. You can't see them, but we can hear them. The most common distractions when you try to listen to people is, is this the right place? If there are other people walking by, if there are 4 or 5 conversations within 15 feet, that can be distracting. So it's a time to say, I'm having trouble following you right now. Why don't we go sit on that table over there? It's a little more quieter. Or let's go sit on the park bench outside. So politely figure out another place to meet. The other one could be, is it the right time? You're just getting out of church here and you've got to pick up your kids and fix lunch within at least 30 minutes because the Cowboys kick off at 1. And, it's not a good time. And so you say something like, I want to be able to devote my full attention to you. Is there a time this week when we can get together and meet? And so make sure it's the right place and the right time. Okay. Next is look interested. Look interested. Even if you're completely tracking with another person, you're going to lose them if they don't perceive that you care. Your facial expressions, your gestures, your posture, your verbal feedback all indicate that you genuinely care. So, what if you're hearing the same old story, probably for the 4th or 5th time? How do you fight off boredom and fatigue? Think about how you appear to the other person when you're tired or bored. What's going to happen? You've heard this story before. So what's likely to happen to you if you're not careful?
You don't want to yawn.
Okay?
You just kind of zone out. Your mind goes somewhere else while they're saying what you know they've already said.
Yeah.
So you're not listening.
Or you get frustrated.
Check my phone.
You get frustrated. They're doing the same thing again.
Yawn. Yeah.
I jump to advice too quickly sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. If you're sitting, you're probably going to slump down in your chair, lose eye contact. So those are the things to watch out for. So what do we need to do? We need to sit up straight and look them right in the eye. Give more feedback than usually would. Give more feedback. You might even take notes. So you're being more active, that keeps you more engaged. And look for the message behind their words. You've heard this story before. There's some kind of message that's behind the words. Look for that. Okay. Third step is active listening. Active listening. So after you initiate the conversation by asking how can I help you and giving them your full attention, you become a detective to discover the real needs and the complicating factors in a person's life. And so to be a good detective, you ask clarifying questions. Ask clarifying questions. So as people tell their stories about strained or broken relationships or sicknesses or death or personal needs or whatever, you ask questions like, what happened next? Or how did you feel when that happened? Or tell me more. So you want to prolong the conversation so you can gather more facts and more feelings. It's important, don't ask why questions. Like, why did you say that? Or why did you do that? Why questions seem kind of demanding and they put people on the defensive. They tend to shut the conversation down just when people start to share their deepest needs and hurts. So stay away from why questions, okay? Next, listen with your eyes. Listen with your eyes. Read the person's nonverbal signals to see if their words and their emotions are consistent. Someone could tell you, I'm fine, but you take a good look at their face and it tells an entirely different story. So look for clues in their appearance, their posture, how they dress, what they say about friends or work or events in their life. A signal that will give you a clue of what's happening underneath the surface. Okay, so it's interaction time again. Think of an important conversation you've had with someone in the last few weeks. What are the nonverbal clues that you picked up on or wish you had picked up on? Your turn.
Crying.
Okay. Are they nervous appearing? Are they downcast in their countenance? Are they tapping their hands? Clues like that. Who else? What have you seen?
Maybe they've lost weight
Okay.
or gained weight.
Yeah.
You know,
Did they
either
look
way.
drawn in their appearance, or have they picked up a few pounds? Anything else you can think of?
Perhaps they aren't talking like they used to speak.
Yeah.
They're not sharing as much anymore.
Yeah. What does their eye contact back to you look like? Can they look you in the face? Or, are they averting their eyes somehow? What's going on there?
They're not taking care of themselves like they normally do.
Okay? Yeah?
Maybe they're not sleeping well, or
Yeah.
maybe not at all.
Yeah. Those things can all be
Or maybe
affected.
more than they should. That's unusual.
Uh-huh, they are. Extremes in eating or sleeping.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they start going to the gym every day.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing I was thinking about was wait during silence. Some of us are fixers, and we feel very uncomfortable with silence during conversation, and so we try to fill in the gaps with advice or directions or personal stories. Instead, if you've asked a question and you know that they understand the question, wait for a response. Silence can be helpful in a meaningful conversation. You may be asking a question that they've never considered, and it's taking them, a minute to put their thoughts together. I would remember that the longer the silence, the more important the issue is, generally. They could be mulling it over, so don't hurry them. After a reasonable time, if there's still silence, you might ask, can I help you find a handle for your thoughts? Something like that. Or if you'd like, you can begin talking and we'll sort it out together. Something like that kind of encourages them to get going. Even if they don't talk, your patience and your kindness can open the door for a deeper conversation next time. Okay, the next tip, summarize the content. Summarize the content. After a person has explained an important topic, provide a summary for feedback and clarification. You could say, this is what I hear you saying, and then explain the situation in your own words. This provides them with assurance that you really do understand what's going on, or it gives them a chance to correct any misunderstandings that you have. Okay? Another tip, mirror the person's feelings. Mirror the person's feelings. Both facts and feelings are important parts of people's stories. And so God made us with emotions, and we need to value the feelings of those people we help. And one of the most important techniques for surfacing and validating someone's feelings is called mirroring. We make simple, declarative sentences about the feelings that we see and hear in the other person, such as, well, that must have hurt. You really enjoyed that. You must have felt really sad and lonely. And a lot of times, well, first of all, avoid the temptation to turn that statement into a question by saying, didn't you? Adding the question usually just brings a yes or no answer, but if you make a declarative statement, it brings a deeper response. You might hear something like, yes, I felt very alone and sad. As a matter of fact, I never felt so sad and alone as I did. And so a simple statement like that can really open the floodgates of long-time repressed feelings. So don't be shocked by them, don't be afraid of them. Tears and fear and anger are part of the healing process. And really, people honor us when they trust us with their deepest hurts and hopes. I can remember counseling a couple, they'd only been married 2 or 3 months, and the wife found out that everything he told her about his life was a lie. He hadn't been in college. All of these qualifications and credentials and certifications that he said he had, he didn't have. He'd even lied about his family. And so she was just, I can't believe you did that. And I said something like, well, that stinks. And then she went for 5 minutes more, you know. It's kind of like lancing an emotional boil. You just say something like that and they go further. You're trying to elicit more information. And so that can really prompt them, just a simple declarative statement like that. So, anybody ever experienced that? You make a simple declarative statement and out comes a gusher of emotion. Has that ever happened to you? What happened?
Well, I want to praise the Lord for being here this morning
Yeah.
because I went through counseling October through December,
Yeah.
so I'm still working through my healing process.
Okay.
So everything you were saying is spot on with me.
Yeah.
So, it was a marriage issue, but we're working through it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and people not listening, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So it's time for some mirroring practice. Okay. So I'm going to make a statement, and I want you to mirror it. Okay. I hate my job. It's a dead end. I work really hard, and nobody cares. How
I
do you
know what you
know?
mean.
I feel your pain.
Been there, done that.
Okay. Anybody else want to try that? I hate my job. It's a dead end. I work really
I'm
hard.
sorry.
Nobody cares.
I'm sorry. Would you like to talk about it? Thank you, Gloria. We can meet later. In the right place and time.
It sounds like you're frustrated because there seems to be no appreciation or no chance for advancement in your job. Is that right? Okay. Here we go again. I'm not sure what to do about my marriage. Our love seems to have grown cold. So mirror that.
You're feeling lonely. That must be scary.
Okay. You seem frustrated. I mean, it's obvious you still love your spouse, but that love seems to have grown a little stale or a little cold. Is that right?
I think I would say, love is a verb, you gotta do it, you gotta do it intentionally. Sometimes it isn't easy.
Yeah. So you see what we're doing here? We're trying to elicit more response from him, more facts, more feelings, and so it's kind of a prompting to give you more information. Okay, one more. I'd like to establish a better relationship with them, but I just can't seem to find a common interest. How would you mirror that? It sounds like what? Sounds like you'd like to get to know that person better, but you just can't find place to start with. Is that true? So, do you see the value of mirroring? It's prompting them to tell you more.
You're really just restating what they said.
It's kind of restating, yeah.
And you're
Might be
guiding-
a little different words, but
You're guiding them to talking about something,
yeah,
to open it up,
yeah,
to guide them to an answer.
yeah. The more information you get, the better off you are. So let's prompt them to tell us a whole lot more. Okay? Now, somebody said this earlier, avoid giving answers too quickly. Avoid giving answers too quickly. Some of us are fixers, but in the discovery part or the discovery phase of the conversation, we need to be careful not to rush to a quick solution. There's going to be time for that. But now focus your attention on digging deeper through the confusion and the denial to discover the hidden reality in that person's life. When the problems are accurately identified, the solutions are more readily available. But when we jump to conclusions, we could solve a surface issue and not really get to the real issue, and we become obstacles then to understanding and trust and genuine progress. So, question for y'all again. How do you feel and respond when someone gives you a quick answer without really listening to you?
They don't know all the facts.
Okay?
They're in a hurry.
They're in a hurry.
I start to think, I've already tried that.
Yeah,
I need something different.
yeah.
It proves
Are they just listening to facts, or are they catching your feelings? Who else? Somebody's about to say something.
It proves they weren't really with you.
Yeah,
It's hard.
yeah. I'm on the clock here, so make it quick. You know, I gotta check this box and get back it done. Who else? You didn't feel listened to because they just shot a quick off-the-hip answer here.
It makes you feel like you're less valuable
Okay?
when you're listening to it. You
I
don't.
got other things to do here, so you've got 45 seconds. All right?
How do you juxtapose inactive listening if they start to voice something that you believe is not true about themselves or about someone else? Do you then do you continue to actively listen? You know, if they're talking themselves down, or if
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
doing something that would sort of border on gossip, or do you start to redirect more quickly?
We're going to get to that, I promise you. But I think I would say, how have you arrived at that conclusion? What has led you to conclude that you're lower than dirt? Or something like that. I would prompt them for more information. How did you get there? So, okay. Yeah.
So you just flesh out their reasoning
Mm-hmm.
and let them see,
Yeah.
even for themselves,
Yeah.
some faults in their thinking maybe.
Yeah. Let's get all the information out so I'll have something to correct later. Okay. This works in evangelism too. I want to know people's objections to Christianity. Let's get it out so I can deal with it. Otherwise, they're never going to accept Christ if they've still got this hidden agenda, this hidden thing back behind. So we might as well get it out. I've even said, so what bums you out about Christianity? You know, that really elicits something pretty quickly. What's turned you off about Christianity? So let's get it out, okay?
Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
but you know, your own personal experiences are gonna affect how you respond. I'm just
Sure.
sitting here thinking of a friend of mine in conversations that we've had where
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with anything she's saying and how she's gonna handle whatever choice she's gonna make.
Yeah,
And, because if you've been there and you've done that,
yeah,
then you understand a little more.
yeah.
And then you can kind of get, sometimes I get a little more direct than maybe I should.
Okay. No, I don't think so. That's going to come a little later, and when we talk about responding, there's going to be a section on correcting. And so right getting information. Okay? Avoid judging and condemning. Avoid judging and condemning. People can tell if our love is authentic, and they can surely tell if we condemn them. If we're judgmental, we may be smiling on the outside, but on the inside, we want to blast them with the truth so they'll repent. Love, though, covers a multitude of sins, theirs and ours. And Jesus didn't condemn the prostitutes, he didn't condemn the tax collectors, he didn't condemn the woman caught in adultery, or anybody else who wandered off God's pathway. He extended grace and truth, but not one or the other. So grace and truth are coming. But people won't listen to truth unless they are convinced that you love them. And so that was the model of Jesus' ministry, and that's got to be the model of our ministry. Okay? One more thing before we get to responding, and it's practice immediacy. Practice immediacy. Some of the people we help are lost in a world of conflicting thoughts and emotions. They have tried for years to make sense of abuse, abandonment, heartache, bitterness, depression, lies, a host of other difficulties in their lives and in their most important relationships. These people have lived with tremendous stress all their life, and it's become normalized. They don't even realize that they're under stress anymore. Their thoughts and emotions are under stress, and they can't think objectively. As they begin to tell you about painful situations, their words and emotions may not match up. And so that's when you stop the conversation and ask, tell me, what's going on in your heart right now? Or let me stop you for just a moment. As you describe the situation, what are you feeling? By using immediacy, you help them connect the event with their emotions again. This realization can be quite painful, but it's the pathway to honesty and emotional integrity, grief, and sometimes healing. McKinney, there was a lady in our life group, and she would tell you about losing both her son and her husband, and it would be in such a matter-of-fact tone that you would be more upset than she was. And you just wanted to say, how do you feel about that, you know? And I don't know, maybe she was trying to just say, no matter what happens, I've persevered through it or something. But immediacy is a good thing to use at times when they're talking so matter-of-factly about horrible things. And so we need to connect their emotions with the event. What do you think are some reasons, this is interaction time again, what do you think are some reasons that people don't connect their emotions with painful situations that they're describing?
Survival.
Huh?
They've had to do it for so long.
Yeah,
You can't feel that way all the time.
yeah,
Denial.
yeah. They want to block it out. They don't want to remove it. I talked to a guy who had been divorced 10 years, and he couldn't even remember what his ex-wife looked like because he blocked it out. So, any other reasons that you can think of?
There are people who just don't express emotion.
Yeah.
I actually had a friend in the past say to me, I wish I could be like you because at least you show how you feel. She
Yeah.
was blank. I mean, she was blank all the time.
Yeah. Out of touch with her own feelings. Yeah. She may not even feel. Sometimes the first step in helping people is to ask them, to connect them with their feelings. How are you feeling about that? And well, you're in the medical field. I mean, doctors can't feel very much. I mean, they're cutting into bones and blood and all that kind of stuff, and they can't go, or they've got another operation to do the next hour, you know.
Oh, they go, ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, doc.
So they want to block it out. They don't want to remember. Perhaps they don't want to face what it would take to move past that. And so that would involve some difficult steps. They don't want to deal with that, so they just reject the emotions. Okay? So, Okay, now we're to responding. And so far, what have we done? We've been uncovering facts and clarifying events and emotions. And you've been responding by asking questions and providing information that you understand. When you feel like you have a good grasp on the problem, you can respond appropriately with comfort, encouragement, information, or perhaps correction. So first, comfort. Most people who come to us for help, they feel emotional pain and they need our comfort. In most cases, your presence and your love provide the most meaningful comfort. Words are secondary. If people cry, let them cry without hurrying them. If they apologize for crying, assure them that their tears are appropriate and you appreciate them for trusting you with their hearts. The most comforting realization for people in pain is that they are not alone. If they need to go to the hospital to visit a sick friend, offer to go with them. If they need to go through the belongings of a family member who has died, offer to help. If that's not convenient or appropriate, give them your phone number and encourage them to call back. So, interaction time. Describe a time when you felt comforted by someone. What did they do or say that was comforting to you?
Pray for me.
Okay. What else?
You can just touch them.
Okay. What did I say? tell me what you're thinking.
Well, like you touch their hand,
Oh,
touch
touch them,
their
okay.
hands or something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah. Put your hand around the shoulder, that kind of thing. Okay. Does somebody else have something over there?
When my father passed away, someone did offer to help me clean out his room in the nursing
Wow.
house, and that was very touching, and it was healing for me.
Yeah. Okay.
She took away some things that I didn't have to deal with.
Yeah. So they're joining you in that painful situation.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
They came and picked me up and like we went and did something and kind of listened as we did something, kind of got me away from the situation.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to encouragement. Hurting people desperately need an infusion of hope. Some are so traumatized that they simply can't believe that any good thing will ever happen to them again. Your interest and care provides a wealth of encouragement, and along with your presence, you can offer words of encouragement, things like, you can do this. I know you can. I'll help you. You know, this is hard, but you're going to be learning some of the most valuable things in life that you need to know. I'm so proud of you for being honest about what's happened to you. You've made a lot of progress, and you're going to make more. So encouraging statements like that. So can you think of times when you felt confused, discouraged, hurt, and somebody said something to encourage you? What did they say to encourage you?
You have more strength than you think you have.
Okay. Anybody else? We'll get through this together. One step at a time. Anybody else remember a time when you needed encouragement? Okay. Providing information. You're going to have many opportunities to provide important and perhaps life-changing information to needy people. They're going to come to you with some pretty rigid presumptions about the way life should work. And some of those presumptions are based on twisted logic and misinformation. And some will come to you fresh from a traumatic event, and their brains are going to be fogged by the devastation. They can't think clearly. I can remember, again, divorce care and being a facilitator in there. People would come to you and they would just be shattered. They can't figure out how to get through life. They think they're going crazy. And after after the times we've spent there, we realized that there are some definite things that happen when you, after any kind of tragedy, but particularly divorce. And there's information you can pass on to them that really makes a difference. Extremes of eating and sleeping. Either they can't keep anything down and they lose 20 pounds, or they stuff themselves with comfort food and they gain 20 pounds. We talked to them about their energy distribution. Usually your energy is distributed 4 different ways: physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And that's pretty much divided equally between those 4 factors. But following a divorce, it's like 85% of your energy is spent emotionally. So what does that leave you in the other 3 areas? You're operating on about 5%. And so I've had people say, I had to make notes to remind me how to make coffee in the morning. One guy said, I got lost coming home from work, and I worked at that same place for over 10 years. I have no endurance. Well, they're operating on 5%. They can't remember things, have to make notes to get through the day. This is the kind of information that I can tell them. Your feelings are entirely normal for what you're going through. We'd explain the grief cycle to them so they could see where they are and where they've got to go, and show them the pathway to getting better. So this gave them hope that they're not always going to feel the way they do right now, and things are not always going to be the way they are right now. I remember talking to one guy, and he was obviously in sports, and I said, if this is a baseball game, it's only the bottom of the 3rd. You know, we've got 9 innings to go. It's not panic time yet. Okay? So offer people advice, information that can help them get through it. Okay, what you all waiting for? Correcting. Because we love people, we must be willing to tell them the truth. This may mean correcting their perspectives, attitudes, or behaviors. And this is done by gently and clearly directing them back to God's plan and purposes for their lives. We need to avoid acting as judge, jury, and executioner. We can't and don't demand compliance, but simply offer insight about the consequences of their choices and encourage them to make good decisions. We are caring friends who want people to walk with God in integrity. And in answer to your question, I would ask them questions. Do you think that was the best way to handle it? Could there have been another way to handle it? You can always ask questions to people to prompt them to rethink their decisions. What would be a good way for you to respond to that? Or when you step away from that situation, how would you have responded? Do you see where I'm going on this? Now, what kind of questions do you want to shoot at me? Anything? Yeah.
If they don't want to realize or own up to their mistake,
Okay. Well, if you're pointing them to God's plan and purposes for their life, you can point to a passage and say, do you think you're living up to that? Or do you think your decision or your behavior correspond to God's will in this issue? So I'm not saying yes or no, I'm not acting as judge and jury, I'm simply floating out the question to them, for them to mull over. Does that help? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have some, maybe some benchmarks for knowing that you're ready to move on to responding?
Is there any more information I need before I respond? Do I have all the facts that I need before I respond? So it's, do I think I've got enough information?
Okay.
Is my answer to that. Okay, I hear wheels spinning.
What if your perception is that they want to vent and they're not particularly interested in engaging either scripture or your thoughts.
Okay? Then the answer to how can I help you, you might say, do you want me just to listen, or do you want me to help you brainstorm your way through this? Or it's like with your wife, you know, what do you need from me right now? So, do you just need to vent? Do you need to help work your way through this? Do you want me to propose some ideas? Do you want me to propose a solution? What do you need from me right now? Basically, that's what you're asking. How can I help you? So, hopefully you'll conclude with, oh, this person just wants to vent. Okay? In Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, Paul writes, brothers and sisters, if anyone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you may also be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. We can be really appalled by somebody's behavior, but we need to keep a lid on our expressions and emotions. The goal is restoration, not blasting or condemning the person. And Paul warns us because we may be tempted as well, and our temptation is that we might respond in a sinful way, condemning or communicating disgust, or just abandoning the person. I'm not going to deal with you, you know? Okay? Last stage, refer. We need an arsenal of trusted, highly recommended professional people that can serve as resources at our disposal. So, as you think about it, what resources, what kind of people would you want on this roster of resources that you would have their phone number right at your fingertips? Who would you want to have access to? Your turn.
What, a counselor?
A counselor, sure.
Christian counselors.
Yeah.
Dr. Middlebury.
A doctor? Sure.
Someone who's been through a similar situation and has come through it.
Okay.
Times and contact information for Christian community.
Right. Okay.
Elders.
Yeah. Probably a good idea to have a Christian lawyer. Funeral home. Crisis pregnancy, the number for that. Maybe debt counseling. Does this county have a homeless shelter? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Got to.
I want to know that. Support groups for drugs, alcohol, gambling, sexual addiction, you name it. Meals on Wheels? Does that exist here in Nacogdoches? I don't know.
Yes.
You'd want to know police and fire. There's also hotlines for poison control. If somebody says, I'm going to take whatever, a drug. Okay. So, I'm sure this church has one. I'm just not privy to it.
Anybody that would find it useful, excuse me, Love Inc. actually uses, we hand out 2 resources to our clients. And one is a listing of all the churches in town, because we try to direct them to a church home if they don't have one.
Sure.
And the other one is a list of all the help that is available in our community,
Okay.
from food banks to attorneys,
Yeah.
to food, clothing, anything that they might find themselves in the need of, then we have a resource sheet.
Yeah.
So that might be helpful for anybody that does that type of contact.
So you just get on the internet and say City of Nacogdoches and it lists.
It's everything in our county
Okay.
that
so
anybody would
County
need.
of Nacogdoches.
Yeah.
All right.
Just pick one up at Loving.
Uh-huh.
When you make this referral, you may be asking people to take a step that's threatening to them. They have revealed their need to you, and that's a good first step. Going to a doctor or a counselor or a support group Requires even more courage on their part because those groups are going to ask you to make some difficult life changes. So when you make the referrals, explain the benefits that they will receive. Paint a picture of emotional or physical, relational, financial health. So motivate them to do this and encourage them to make an appointment in the next few days. Don't assume that giving somebody a piece of paper with a number on it is going to change their life. They may not call because of fear or concern about what's going to be asked of them. Tell the person you're going to call in a few days to see if they made the appointment or to ask questions about how the first meeting went. So that's what I brought for you today. Any questions you want to ask me? Okay. Are there some tips that you think might be helpful that you learned today?
Could you go over again how you paint a preferable future
Okay.
in detail?
So someone comes to you and they're in all kinds of financial situations. Troubles, bill collectors, whatever. And you could say, how about if we direct you to someone who's an expert in budgets and also has some experience dealing with collection agencies? And they can help you set up a budget, so that you will devote your money to all your different areas appropriately. And we can figure out a way that you can start whittling down your debt. Something like that. So paint a picture, motivate them to get the help they need. What else? Well, I appreciate your attention. I hope this has helped.
Very good.
And I hope that you'll be better counselors for your friends. So, thank you. You're dismissed.